Hi, everyone. Can I get a thumbs up or a jazz hands from people just so we're good? Thanks for the jazz hands. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm Dave. I'm a product manager at Twilio. I'm going to be joined by Mal. He's going to be doing some live code on Proxy later in the talk. He's the tech lead on Twilio Proxy, and I'm delighted to get the chance to introduce you all to this brand new product that shipped at Signal. First of all, hands up if you got a Lyft or an Uber to the conference today. I was a little bit late. I got a Lyft. Did anyone have an interaction with their driver before they got in the car? Did anyone have to text or call, or were you all waiting outside? Yeah, we've got some hands up. Great. If you're not familiar with that use case, you see in the apps that the car is on the way, and you realize you're not going to make it in time, so you send off a quick text message from the app, loads up your own SMS functionality. You text the driver, and you say, hey, I'm running a little bit late. He might text back saying, no worries, I'm waiting outside. And if you don't know that use case in detail, you might not realize you're not texting the driver's actual phone number. You're texting a proxy number. Okay, so your SMS message is going out from your phone to a Twilio number and then being routed to the driver's phone. So you're not getting each other's personal phone numbers. And it's not just ride sharing, okay? There are actually a lot of use cases where that basic use case comes into play. Riders and drivers, Lyft, Uber, we've all heard of that. Hosts and guests, Airbnb. But there's a ton more. Parents and teachers, buyers and sellers of all types. These types of communications have a lot of different names that have evolved as these sharing economy, on-demand economy, marketplace, logistics use cases have come about. Anonymized comms, masked comms, controlled communications. They have a couple of cross-cutting concerns that unify the different use cases. They're one-to-one. It's an individual interaction. Myself, as a customer, talking to a mobile worker for a company. I might be a customer talking to another customer. They're timely. It's useless to me if I go, I'm actually on this street corner, and that message is delivered 3 days later. It's very important that it's timely. They're transient. It's very, very useful for me to be able to call the Lyft driver and say, hey, a little bit delayed. I'm just putting the cat out. I'll be down in just a second. But there's no point in me being able to call the driver 3 weeks later. In fact, in a lot of these use cases, we don't want that as businesses. We don't want that to happen. What do we want to do? We want to control that interaction. They're private. I shouldn't be handing out as a business people's personally identifiable information. Their phone numbers, their contact details. Okay? So these features all add up to this idea of controlled communications. So I'm really delighted to introduce you to Dave and Mal's Pizza Delivery Company. We're going to use this as a crutch or an example to take us through the journey of figuring out what we're really talking about in this type of communication. Just like so many of the companies we've already mentioned, Dave and Mal and our wonderful new pizza company, we have a communications challenge, just like so many of your businesses and so many of Twilio's customers. Where's my pizza? It's a fundamental question in life. And answering it is really important, especially when you're hungry. I'm glad the talk is after lunch, or else this might get a bit testing on the nerves if you're hungry. And I keep saying the word pizza over and over. Where is my pizza? Okay? And the really classic example I'm sure you've all encountered is I call back the restaurant I made the order from, and they handle my call. By the way, that's not a pizza emoji and a store emoji on top of each other. That's a photo of the actual store. So the classic example, I call the shop or the restaurant and I say, where's my pizza? Pizza company says, let me find out. They call the driver pulls in. He answers the call, he says, I'm not sure where that address is, help me out, etc. We're all familiar with this. What's happening is that the restaurant is acting as a proxy. And it's a really frustrating experience and ultimately bad for both the customer and the driver. So Dave and Mal, we tried this for a week, and we're like, we can do better. When people order, I'm just going to give the driver the customer's phone number. And this is actually way better, okay? Way better, straight out of the box. Driver pulls in, can't find the address, calls the customer directly, says, hey, I've got your pizza, it's delicious. Do you want it? I can't find your address. Much better experience. The next couple of weeks are great for us. People seem happy. But then Mal says, aren't we introducing like some pretty interesting problems, new challenges? Should I be giving out drivers and customers personal numbers? No, you should not. Emphatically no. How does Dave and Mal's Pizza Company, how do we tell what happened with that delivery? If they're just talking themselves, we have no idea. How do I control it? How do I stop them talking to each other if it starts to go off on a tangent I don't really want it to? I can't. I have nothing left. I've given out their personal phone numbers. I've given out their contact details. It's out of my hands. It's out of our control as a business. But if you're familiar with Twilio, you will have heard of the terms masked or anonymized numbers, the masked or anonymized communications use cases. We can set up a proxy number between the customer and the driver. As we said, the biggest problem is getting that pizza to the customer. That's what that arrow is. And yes, we place a Twilio number in between the driver and the customer. And immediately, it means that the driver and the customer don't see each other's personal communication when they SMS or call each other. And we're in a much better place. So we go to Twilio. We go to this website. That's an actual Twilio website. You can go to it right now or listen to me. You build it with Twilio. You buy some Twilios you buy some Twilios? Everyone wants to buy Twilios. You buy some numbers from Twilio. You set up a database. You have to run a web server. Your database is going to maintain the matching. This is an actual diagram, by the way, from that website. And you can kind of tell it's Game of Thrones themed, so it's been around for quite a while. We have to set up this matching and mapping database ourselves. That's step 2. Then when Aria actually wants to send a text message to Bran, in step 3, sends the text message to the Twilio number. It fires a webhook or a callback out to your web server, to Dave and Mal's Pizza Company's web server, interrogates Dave and Mal's Pizza Company's database, looks up the mapping of who should be mapped for that order, and routes it to Bran, fires back to Twilio, tells Twilio to route the message correctly, and boom, Bran gets the message. OK? That's a good experience for the customers, but it's a big ask for Dave and Mal. Web server, database, code, time, maintaining that code going forwards. It's not just that they do this once. They're going to have to keep that server running for every single interaction. Mal's the smart one. He's quite quiet, but he's very smart. And he says, well, are we even finished here? How many numbers do I need? And Dave obviously just panics and goes, I think we need one, right? You map them. He's like, yeah, but what if we open up in Philadelphia after San Francisco? What numbers do we need there? How many do we need? If we have hundreds of people ordering pizza, how many numbers do we need? And still, how did Dave and Mal's Pizza Company know what happened? So they'll have to go back to Twilio and look at the logs for SMS. They might have to store the content themselves in their own database systems. And even further, if are SMS and voice just handled? Do they need to do different things? And what they're realizing, two-way communication is actually quite hard. Okay? SMS has no concept of session. Phone number management is challenging, and there's a lot under the iceberg of thinking about phone numbers. And something that they didn't even think about. When you go onto different platforms, it gets even harder. So imagine we did build all of that functionality. Imagine we get it all running in the happy path, and then some of our customers fill in a survey and say, hey, Facebook Messenger would be cool. I want to communicate with the driver that way. Or if we bring out an app and we have programmable chat. We haven't even thought of that, and suddenly we have to do a whole bunch of building to add different channels. OK, so now I'm delighted to say that Twilio Proxy is a declarative API, powering private text and voice conversations between a customer and a mobile worker representing a business. How does it work? Diagrams. We create a session. A session represents an individual conversation between two people. We tell Twilio about those participants. All we have to tell Twilio is their actual end numbers, their actual personal phone numbers. Twilio knows that we need proxy numbers for this use case, so it goes and gets them for you and selects them intelligently. And from that point forward, once we give out those numbers, customer stays on their phone, driver stays on their phone, But Twilio is taking over all the routing of that conversation through that session and building up an interaction log and the history of what's being communicated. Just to be really clear about the concept of that session, okay? It's not just one SMS or call we're talking about here. We're talking about, for that pizza order, that session represents all of the communications that are going to happen, whether they're multiple calls. Where is my pizza? Where is my pizza? Oh, I'm over here. I'm sorry. They can all be handled through that one session. And that session can have an identifier related to your pizza order. So rather than me keep talking for the next 10 minutes, I want to invite Mal up, the tech lead on Twilio Proxy, and he's going to live code a demo of how this works.
Thank you, Dave. OK, so I'm going to show you how it works. I'm going to fire open my Ruby console. And I just need to bear with me while I do a teeny bit of setup. I'm going to pull in the Twilio Ruby library. And I'm going to pull in some constants because I am terrible at memorizing SIDs. OK. First thing we need is a Twilio client, which is a Twilio REST client with an account. OK. With an account SID and an auth token. That's in preview. OK. I'm going to have to set up my account. There's one thing my account needs, and that's a service. The service will host your pool of proxy numbers and a couple other common objects that'll exist across all your session. Services, create. We'll give it a friendly name so we know what it's for. And this is for Signal 2017. Thank you. OK, so now we're ready to start pairing people up. So I'm going to pair myself and Dave, put us into a session. This will be a service, a session in the service. And I'm going to give it a unique name that'll tie it back to my own business system. And we're just going to call it this room, 950. And let's add Dave and Mal to the session. So Dave is a participant in the session. Participants, create. He has an identifier of Dave's number. And Mal is also in this session. He's also a participant in the session. And he has an identifier of Mal's number.
So can you guys still hear me? Am I still mic'd on? Good. Sorry to interrupt, Mal. Where did the numbers come from, the proxy identifiers?
Oh, that is actually my favorite part. So you'll see that Dave got this proxy identifier. And your service has a pool of numbers, service.phone numbers, that we'll draw from whenever we need one. Twilio Proxy realized that there were no numbers in this pool, so it went and bought you a number, configured it, and added it to your service automatically for yourself. And you can now see that there's one number in your services pool. When we went and created Mal, we realized we can use the same number for Mal. We didn't need to buy another number, so just reuse this number here. OK, we've created the session. This is all you as the developer need to do. Twilio will take it from here. So I'll actually show you that. I could take my phone out and show you, but you won't be able to see the screen. So I'm going to use iMessage on my laptop to do the texting. So I'm going to grab this proxy identifier and send Dave a message. Dave, where's my pizza? Give him some pizza emojis to make it clear what I'm looking for. And as I'm texting, what's happening over here in your session is we're building up a list of interactions. Now, this is how you as the developer can take the history of the conversation and display it in a UI, pull it into your database, or just see what's happening. And you can see, thank you, Dave. You can see we have all these interaction records. We have the body of the text message. We know that it was completed. We know it was successfully sent. We can actually pull out the underlying SMS resource from Twilio if we actually wanted to dig deeper. And we can scroll through our history. So that's it. And that is Twilio Proxy. Back to you, Dave.
Cool. So cool. Thank you. No pizza at all. OK. Maybe? So Mal just showed it excellently, right? With a couple of lines of code, you're able to create a session that ties directly back to your business system and represents the two people participating in that session and all of the communications that happen over it. The key objects that Mal introduced, services, they're your containers for the sessions that you're going to have. The session itself are the individual conversations that are going to occur. The participants are the individuals, and the interactions are the log of all of the different types of communication that happened. So I'm just going to do a quick run through of each of those. OK, so the service, you associate numbers. If you don't, we'll purchase them for you. Webhooks, you're going to set them up there. If you need to intercept content before it's routed across, you can do that. We'll also have intelligent defaults for closed sessions. So if you, for example, call that driver 3 weeks later, we can route that with some TWIML to your contact center. The session itself, big blob of JSON. We have a status for it. It's in progress. Is it closed? Is it ongoing? We have the unique name, which is settable and mappable to your own system. So you can address this session by your order ID or whatever's relevant for you. The time to live, 0 means last forever. So it's totally applicable to use this software for multi-year engagements if it's two people talking. But of course, in the on-demand economy use cases, you want to shut those sessions down after, say, 24 hours after they happen. So maybe you want to leave one open in case someone forgets their umbrella, but you can get back to that. Participants have an identifier. That's their actual phone number. On different channels, that might be a different type of identifier. For example, a Facebook sender ID or a programmable chat identity. And then on certain mediums, you're going to have proxy identifiers. You may be struggling to imagine another medium where you have proxies. But for example, in the Facebook use case, you can imagine where the identifier is the sender ID, but the proxy is the Facebook wall we're messaging through. Just like we've announced this morning, there are many features that Proxy gets automatically in helping with phone number selection, geo-matching to city and country so you can get local numbers, multiplexing. So this feature is very important to understand. When you have a pool of numbers, Proxy will intelligently manage that pool, load balance across it, so that you don't have, for example, queuing and latency. If you have 10 numbers and you have 1 message per second across those numbers and you have a sufficient number of sessions and a sufficient number of messages, we're going to load balance across those numbers so that everything moves as fast as it can. We also have intelligence there, so you can't have collisions. You can't. If I order 5 pizzas and I'm assigned 3 drivers, then I could have up to 5 conversations going on, and I need to make sure that those conversations are kept separate. Those sessions are all going to be mapped to different numbers to make sure that you can't have your texting and suddenly the messages start to get intermingled. Okay, so we have all of that logic handled automatically for you. And like I said, multi-channel. If the driver happens to be in in-app chat as well, we're handling that too. Proxy can be the bridge between SMS or voice and other channels as they become available. Interactions, as Mal showed, he showed the full communications history. So optionally, we can show you all of the communications that happened as part of that session, both text and voice communications together. So with one lookup of your order ID or your job ID, you're getting the full interactions history of that communication. So it's very good for support, et cetera. And as Mal showed, it links to the underlying Twilio object. So if you do want to dive deep, all of Proxy is built on those programmable Twilio building blocks. So you can go deep dive into what happened and investigate further. So Twilio Proxy, riders and drivers, hosts and guests, all of these use cases, these individual one-to-one use cases that have become so prevalent over the last couple of years. Connecting your mobile workers and customers, you could build session management yourself, phone number management yourself. You can proxy all those communications back and forth. You can add multi-channel support as those channels become available and build those into your software. Or you can build it with Twilio Proxy and get started very, very quickly. How do you do that? I'd be delighted if you'd go to twilio.com/proxy. There's a form at the bottom of that screen. If you fill that in, you'll be granted access to the developer preview, which currently has SMS and voice support, as Mal showed. And then coming soon, we're going to be adding channels and features. Programmable chat is top of the list. Multiple OTT providers, Facebook and others. You saw the channels announcement earlier in the keynote. The auto-scaling numbers functionality, where Mal didn't even purchase a number. Content filtering, you would have heard about that in the keynotes as well. That will all be optionally part of Proxy and recording. So if you need to record audio calls. And there's a lot more to see. I'd love you to visit that site and have a look. And we're delighted to get some feedback on the product as it's coming out in developer preview, yesterday. So thank you very much for listening.